That's kind of interesting. Wow, that was weird. YouTube is definitely acting strangely lately. When it started live streaming just a moment ago, the visual I saw in the live preview was from, it had to have been from a different day completely, like for about 2 seconds. I'm seeing the wrong thing on the screen because I didn't have my hat on. I don't think that's possible. Okay, so anyway, we are here, we are live. I said yesterday I was going to be live. I had mentioned the weirdness with YouTube, and I think it was Mikhail Humphreys had asked the question in the comments, what's the problem with talking about controversial topics on your live streams? And I didn't answer the comment, but my answer would be simply, there's no problem. There's no problem. It's all good. I think it was a technical problem with my computer anyway. I don't, but I'm not going to overthink it. It's time to get to work. So let's just jump in and do it. Over the last few days, we've been, well, really weeks actually, we've been chewing through this sequence where TNR is about to come out of the tent, and all of a sudden Mel has this reaction, and I did this shot yesterday. So this is what we're bumping into, what we're going to do today. He's got this reaction, scurries up the hill, and now the storyboard shows you what comes next. He kind of looks up over the bluff, and then we see him peeking up and over, and then he sees her coming out of the tent. So we won't get that far, I'm pretty sure. Morning, Maria. So what we're going to do is we're going to challenge ourselves, as I itch my little nose. We're going to challenge ourselves to knock out 2 scenes in an hour. Why? Just because it's fun to challenge ourselves. So let's try. We have a to-do list. To-do list is right here. The to-do list is number 1, solve the background. Fortunately, in this case, I've got a little check mark by that because it's already done. And the reason it's already done is because this shot really is just using a background from a shot that happened probably 40 seconds ago in the show or something like that. Okay, so then the next step will be to import the palette for Mel. So we're going to go ahead, in fact, let's just do that right now and get that out of the way. The way we're going to do that in Tahoma or OpenToonz is to go to the browser, and I'm just going to take this close-up of Mel. If you double-click it, you can preview it. But this basically has all the colors I need to do what I need to do. So with that, I'm going to just load it. Load. And it should now appear in my scene. Of course, we don't want that shot in there. Looks like there's actually a bunch of poses here, all very interesting. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to save my work, save early, save often, because I did have that blow up using vector levels the other day, and actually when I got to work this morning, I went and I think I said file new to just create a new scene, and poof, Tahoma went gone. So it doesn't happen very often. It's not a big deal, but you know, it's something to be aware of. So I'm going to hit the B key and click, and it created a new smart raster level. And then what I'm going to do is come over to this smart raster level and just grab all these colors and poof, paste them into that smart raster level, and now this level is no longer needed. So now, just for keep things clean, I'm going to go to my scene cast, and as you can see, now what I was going to say is, as you can see, there is no scene cast visible. I used to notice this with OpenToonz, thought it was maybe a bug or something, because oftentimes when you've deleted levels and you're trying to sort of wake OpenToonz up to, you know, be really clear about what levels exist in your scene, you would often see nothing here. But I know with Tahoma, actually, if you browse like this to the cast, then it shows up. Maybe that was always true in OpenToonz too. I don't know. Don't care. But what I'm going to do is click remove all unused levels. And as you can see, that cleaned out a lot of garbage. So that means it's time to save all. Okay. So with that accomplished, I can take my little scratch pad and check importing Mel's palette off my list. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to first animate Mel. What we got to do is get this pose right here. So we're going to see him peeking up. Why don't we just copy that to the clipboard from Vegas, come over here into Tahoma, and just go ahead and paste it in as a raster level so we can see what we're doing. And frankly, with that done, I don't really need to, gosh, I don't really need to do much of a pencil test here, do I? So I think what I'll do is take the raster level, and I'm actually going to cut this and push it up here because I want to put him in his final position, and then I'm going to animate backwards from there so that I don't have to fight with the fact that his body's getting cut off down here, right? So what we'll do is we'll animate this position, and then probably the smart way to do this one would be to we'll do the ink and paint on his body and then animate it down, and then we'll animate the arm separately because there's actually some bending that's got to go on with the arm. So with that accomplished, we can actually go over here and just knock out the ink and paint on the body. So again, save early, save often. I'm going to hit the B key on my raster or my smart raster level and see what I got going as far as brush settings. See if we are all dialed in. You know, I tend to like, when I'm doing ink and paint, I tend to like a little bit of smoothing. Looks like we got our smoothing around 30 to 40%. Hardness, you know, you can fiddle with that to taste, but I would say this is probably fine. So let's just start rocking and rolling here. Trying to be really cognizant of the proportions, or I didn't really say that correctly. I'm actually going to do this the way, you know how I always say work from the known to the unknown? Actually, with something like this, where what I'm trying to do is really see in my mind the symmetrical, you know, shape of his hair, but yeah, it's tilted in 3D space, so you sort of have to take that into account. So what I'm going to do is actually put marks in here for that which I know where it goes. Yeah, the same way I do a lot of drawings a lot of times is just kind of get it blocked in like that and then connect up the dot. Neck type of thing. We'll get that in there. I'm hitting Control-Shift-F to make sure that's a fillable shape. So that's the fill check tool, and that is in your view fill check. Okay. The hotkey is not enabled by default, by the way. So you're going to have to set that one yourself. If you don't know how, you're welcome to ask. I don't promise I'll answer. I may or I may not. It depends on the mood I'm in that day. Alright, so there's that. Now I'm going to hit the N key to zoom back out. And now, what do we want to do with his shoulder? I'm just thinking. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually... Well, okay. He's got to be animated pretty slowly because he's kind of easing up, so it's probably going to be really stupid to do it as a frame-by-frame animation. That's just doing a bunch of extra work for no good reason. So I guess what I'll do is let's get this side of his bod figured out. Okay, again, this is, I know I want that there. Probably there's his belt. And so the thing that is giving me pause that I want to think about is what am I going to do with his deltoid? Sorry, I have sneezed in the ears of my YouTube viewers so freaking many times over the months and years that it's downright embarrassing. So sorry about that. But anyway, so let's just kind of get this all blocked in. It's feeling pretty good. And then what I'm going to do here, what I'm thinking is I'm thinking I'm just going to make his deltoid part of the other layer. So what I'm going to do is wind up coloring that in, I expect. But I'm not going to, I'll probably color it in after I get the other level in there. So let's go ahead and put that in there like this. All right, and now we're going to want the, I mean, really what we want is these two colors. He's got his armbands though too. Let's just grab the whole palette and make it simple. Control C. Obviously, you know, you can go a lot deeper dive with palette management in OpenToonz or Tahoma. I usually don't fiddle with it. I just cut and paste the palette I need from a previously done shot that looked right. Okay, and by the way, I'm already noticing. Hey, Inio-san, sneezing is good luck. Okay, cool. Cool. I'm glad to know it's bad luck. I'm gonna actually redraw this. Sorry, wrong level there, Jack. Wrong level. I'm actually rethinking slight. Whoops, wrong color. Oh, I'm just full of mistakes today so far. I want to give this, guys on this channel haven't really seen me draw that way that often, especially when I'm doing ink and paint. I guess in this case I'm kind of doing the drawing and the inking at the same time, which is a little riskier behavior. But I have to say, this is a fun way to draw. I like drawing this way. I like it. You know, there's a danger, and the danger is you're gonna wind up with and I'm gonna put an indication, by the way, there of his kind of his jawline or whatever. So I'm gonna just sneak that in right there. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so the danger is that you don't close your shapes. So that's where hitting the, you can see right there we've got plenty of unfilled shapes. So just turning on the old fill check over and over is quite useful. All right, boom, boom, boom. There we go. Okay, so now we can move on to the deltoid situation. Well, actually, what we probably should do is get him colored and animated, because we're going to want to animate the arm relative to the way his body's moving. So, so again, hey, Inio-san, it's nice to see everybody here today. So let's hit save, Control S, which is actually save all. And Tahoma's thinking, so I'll take a drink of my tasty beverage, which is in fact hot water. I usually only do one coffee in the morning, but it's a 16-ouncer, and it's espresso. Cafe Bustelo, which I love. But, you know, you don't necessarily want to be doing 2 of those. That could be a tad egregious to your level of edginess. Okay, this color feels a little bit pushed to the green for me. I suspect this one is as well. Yep, there we go. That's a nice fix. Flesh tone, flesh tone. And we got to do that wrap thingy-dingy. Okay, so in case you didn't know, it is in fact officially and legally referred to as a thingy-dingy. Okay, so now what we're going to do is figure out how we want this guy to move. Therefore, what we know for sure is that this is his ending point, not his starting point. Okay, so let's think about this. He's gonna, we might have a problem, come to think of it. Yes, okay, we do have a problem. Sorry. Coffee and waffles, oh my goodness, yum, yum, yum. I haven't had waffles in like a long time. I used to make waffles regularly, actually. When I was a kid, I made them for my family. I would usually pancakes, actually, but sometimes waffle. But yeah, I would make get up on Saturday mornings when I was a teenager and make waffles, or I'm sorry, pancakes, usually pancakes. And my mom actually, she rolled her own syrup, which was quite tasty. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of a mod on his flesh tone as well. And so here what I'm going to do is grab this flesh tone and then hit the R key to sample. I said the R key to sample that color so that they're both the same. Okay. That's not too bad. Speaking of working from the known to the unknown, now what we could do is animate his body, leave the hand in there, and maybe actually do the rest of his arm as a separate layer or level. Whoa, bunch of comments. Crit versus Dave, or Knit versus Dave. You have a dilemma. Ha! I don't think so. Knitting is, knitting is good for the soul. I tell you, we've got this over yonder. I should show you guys this actually. If you go to the webcam only view, and over here you can see that Zuko has a huge cage. So that is a massive bird cage, right? And we have a cover. There's a cover that's on the bird cage that is well, actually, speaking of theater, here's what actually happened is several years ago we needed a cover. And it's like, where do you find a cover for a birdcage? And probably they exist, and they're probably hugely expensive, because it's a real specialty item. I just happened to wander in to a Salvation Army store, and they had a massive theater curtain, like this huge theater curtain. It's got these heavy-duty hooks, and I'm like, I can't believe it. And I said, they didn't even have a price on it. I said, I'll give you $20 for it, and they're like, okay, take it away. It's a big, massive curtain. And it just hooks onto the cage and wraps around, and it's like this perfect cover. Why do I mention this? Well, because of the knitting thing. Actually, the thing got a few holes in it, and so I went and bought some hook-style needles like my mom used to use back in the 1980s when she was she did upholstery. She was very, very good at like, she and her partner would recover chairs and sofas and things like that. And so yeah, I went and got one of those heavy-duty needles and some heavy-duty thread, and actually sat there and sewed up the curtain. It's like, okay, that's good for the soul. I'll turn on some anime and sew. Real men sew. Okay, let's be clear about that. Real men sew. There's no doubt. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, this is going to be really simple actually, because we're going to go into our preferences, look at animation. It's going to be a linear transition. So, yep. You kind of, I did it fairly loosey-goosey, where you do just a real loose stitch to kind of get a, they do so. Ask any sailor. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so OBS just did its thing, and OBS is now reconnected, and we have a 5-second delay. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to drag him all the way off. Okay, so the problem we have now is that this is actually not quite correct. He really should only be coming up about this far, so I don't even think I need the deltoid in there. And the reason for that is, if you look at the next shot, what actually happens is he sneaks up, and then poof, you see his eyes peep up over the bluff. So it does not make any sense that he would be, way up in this region at this point. So with that in mind, let's take this hand, drag that down there so that it's properly on the grass, and now let's kill this layer so we're not looking at it, and see what we have. That will work. Okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do is grab this drawing. Believe it or not, folks, we're actually frighteningly close to being done with this shot already. Whoops, that's a little too beefy of an arm for Mel. So fill tool, boom. Okay. So, and then why don't we even make it better by animating this out and kind of keeping it all dynamic like this. And then now we can kind of fine-tune the positioning. I think I'm actually moving it in real time to kind of feel what that would feel like. Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to get him about to there, and we're going to do some plastic. Okay? So, this should be interesting. I'm going to have to... It's actually going to be a little tricky. Why don't we do this? Let's delete these keys completely. Let's get the plastic tool dialed in, and then we'll animate. We'll do the overall animation on the plastic tool level. So I'm hitting the X key, create a mesh, done, create a skeleton. I'm going to do this one as simple as possible. I just want to put a little bit of a joint in his neck area, and that's it. I think that's all I want. Maybe I'll put one here, just so maybe there could be a little bit of a bendy poo. So, okay. So, why? So it's not doing a long interpolation between these keys. And I think something like that. Yep, that's all we need. So now I can hit the A key, get this out of here, and then over the course of this much time, probably get this up to about here, and now it should be, that's not too bad. I'm not sure I love the positioning here, maybe over just a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna look at the, hey Sarthak, Sarthak Gotswar. Should you record voice or animate first? It's completely your choice. Honestly, it doesn't matter. It really depends on kind of what you're doing. If you're... actually, Inio-san answered the question. In traditional animation, you would record the voice first and animate to that. That is true. But in Japanese, exactly. It's almost more like making a movie and then looping it, or doing dialogue replacement. For me, I'm adding the dialogue later, and I mentioned this yesterday. I'm doing all the dialogue this way. I shouldn't say that. There have been exceptions, but generally the dialogue is, okay, so here's your character and their mouth is closed, okay? For anime, this is the pattern. You've got a open mouth, more open mouth, back to open, back to more open, back to almost closed. So you've got this 5-frame pattern like that you can put under almost any verbiage and it'll look right. And plus, that's a good thing to do for anime because it's going to wind up getting translated into other languages anyway. So all the lip sync isn't even going to work if you try to drill right down into the phonemes. Okay, so now the main issue we have at this point is probably the whole thing's moving a little too fast. So let me jump back here. Maybe not. I might be wrong about that. Let me see here. Okay, yeah, this is too slow. So what I'm going to do is actually give the audience half a second to sort of digest the shot. So I'm going to go 3 frames. Let's put that. Yeah, that's cool. So then this whole thing seems to happen a little too slowly for my taste. Bop, bop, bop. Okay, not too bad. Let me see that one more time. Okay, and this, I think, let me see what happens if we do this. This is a little risky, but I like that better. Has Sergio Leone would let his actors do their lines in their native language and worry about translations after. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sergio Leone's movies, it's pretty obvious when you watch them, too. Very obvious when you watch a Sergio Leone movie that the dialogue is all 100% looped or replaced. Okay, I like it. All right, so this gives me this shot. And the problem we're going to have is that, let me see this. What we really need to do, hopefully this isn't the plastic tool. I don't know if this keyframe is. It's not. Okay, so what we want to do here is put this key here. I think I want to slide all this down a little, because it's got to look like he's sort of being careful here, right? And we're going to have to cut it while he's still in motion. Otherwise, the next shot will not make sense in terms of editing. So I'll go ahead and give it a little bit of breather. So let's chop it to 24 seconds, or 24 frames, I should say. 3 seconds. Okay, so therefore, let's render this to 551, and we're almost ready to do the next shot, actually. And, okay, wow. Wow. Guys, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm seriously starting to wonder if Twitch would be a better option, because it appears to me that we have a 10-second delay on the stream right now, which means that OBS is practically off more than it's on. It's like ridiculous. How every other technology, software, yada yada yada, on this system works 100% flawlessly, and yet OBS streaming to YouTube like pukes really regularly. Who do you blame that on? OBS? The computer? Or YouTube? I tend to think YouTube. But what do I know? Okay, so here's 551. There it is. We're going to change its properties to disable resample. Now I'll go back to this screen so you can kind of say, hey, golden slime. Alright, so here we go. Let's just get the whole feel of this motion. This is the shot we did yesterday. Ah, we have another problem. Okay, that's all right. I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna actually make this work editorially. Okay, so you guys probably noticed the problem. This is a really easy thing to do, by the way, in terms of dumb mistakes. But what we got going on here is, when I got a little more creative with this shot than what was in the storyboard. So you see him pop up, but now we're seeing him carefully pop up. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So, but we're going to fix that here in just a second. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to fix this, because I actually think the whole sequence would be a little stronger if I went ahead and lengthened this shot out and have him pop back down. So he's going to pop up, then pop back down. We'll just re-render it. So let's load up 550. Hey, Amar. Haven't seen you in a while. Files, save all. Okay, so we've got this. Although this is currently lacking shadows too. And what I think I'm going to do is, instead of using shadows, two video cards in the system. Yeah, maybe. I mean, if it had one video card that was dedicated to, for streaming, that might be an interesting thing to explore for sure. Okay, so before we fix the previous, I'm on the wrong screen. Before we fix the previous shot, let's do this. Let's go ahead and make this look better. So we're going to go into the effects schematic, and what we're going to do is we're going to add the body highlight effect inverted, so that it actually darkens down his colors a little bit. Okay, so Mel is column 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to go insert effects, light, body highlight, and if we look at it rendered, you'll see what that did. Now we got to make some changes here. All right, so the first thing we're going to change is we're going to make this inverted. So it's actually going to yes. Okay, and then based on that, What do we think here? Would this be, let me put this to 0 and see what that does. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to go -20. And then we're going to change the color to a dark color, not a light color. And then we'll dial up the transparency until it just kind of sort of feels right. Okay. So there's that. Now, there's more than one way to do what I'm doing here. But what I'm going to do is take column 7 and literally just Control C, Control V, just make another copy of the same plugin and just run 2 instances of it. It's kind of the quick and dirty way to do what I'm trying to do. So there we go. So now, because I really didn't want to add a highlight, I really wanted to emphasize the shadow. So in this case, what we've got now is we've got the shadows in there. The effect is just turning down all the main colors that comprise him. So Control Shift R, we're going to re-render. And hey, Claude, boy, you haven't been around in a while either, I don't think. I seem to remember you from quite some time ago. So, good work, girl. Okay, so is your Maria, do you have your, whatever you're doing animation-wise, do you have it on your YouTube channel, or do you have to go somewhere else to check that out? Kepoi Alos says XP Pen. That's what I use. I use an XP Pen Digital Artist 15.6. Anyway, back to the edit. Okay, so now we've made this modification right here. As you can see, he's sneaking up, and we do have another problem that I need to fix real quick here. The final resting position is a little too high, so let's hit the A key and let's just dial that back a little bit. There we go. And re-render that. That's going to be good to go. Now we need to load up 550 and fix the problem I described just a little bit ago. So this is going to be load a recent scene file, load 550. Yeah, we'll save all. Okay, you were in school. I assume, is that high school or college? My son actually just finished, he had his high school commencement yesterday. Just yesterday. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go here. And now, as you can see, we've got pop, pop. We're just going to reverse this. So here, I'm going to have him 12. And actually, you know what? It looks to me like just having that in there will make it look like he just disappears. So it's got a lot of snap to it. But watch, boop. I like it. I like it. So we'll go with that, and this one needs to be re-rendered. And so now if we go over to the show, okay, cool. So you're my son's age. Where are you from, Claude? Where are you at in the world? Yeah, I like it. This is working now. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here to the edit. And what I'm going to do is just go to the place where he pops out. And I pretty much want to cut it off there. So now if we look at the large... pop. I guess we want to let this breathe a little bit. Reason being that once he pops out, you kind of want to feel like he's thinking about, you know, give him half a second to decide he's going to go ahead and sneak up there and see what he can see. So that makes more sense. Africa. Okay, cool. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I love it. All right, so that's it for that shot. And now we're up to 552, which is this one. So this should be kind of fun to do. Let's pull back up. Okay, actually, let's stop right here for half a second. Remember, okay, this is important, guys. Remember, when we did this shot, I mentioned the fact that all the backgrounds were done with vector levels. Why don't we just reuse this shot for this super duper close-up? Yep, that's what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm immediately going to save this one as 552. Okay, this will all make sense in a half a second. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this, well, I need to still import a picture of Mel so I have the colors. Okay, but let's get this, and we'll give this a try and see how it goes. You'll see here in a half second what I'm trying to do. Okay, so now for this scene, for 552, we do not need these silhouettes, and we don't need this sketch. So now what I'm going to do again is go into my cast and remove all unused levels, and then save my work. Okay, so now because this foreground is a vector level, let's see how much we can get away with in terms of scaling it up and seeing if it starts to look like really bad. Because I suspect it will, but hey, it's worth a try. So what we would want is something like this, and it's actually, while I'm doing this, it's actually giving me an interesting idea. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this. Let's look at this storyboard image. Okay, so what I'm going to do, does Tahoma2D have the same new effects as OpenToonz 1.5 as well as a few new ones of its own? I think it does. I mean, you'd have to check that yourself, but I think it does, because this version of Tahoma 1.2, I think I'm using the latest version. Maybe I'm not, come to think of it. Because I remember I looked at the glow effect, or not the glow, the bloom effect, and I wasn't that impressed with it. I really didn't think it was that great. And so, and I don't remember if there were some other issues that made me decide to not use the latest version of Tahoma. So anyway, don't quote me on that. But I think, as far as the effects, I think it is parity between the two. I think. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is, I've actually got an interesting idea, I think. What if we were going to animate the camera? Okay, I want to do that last. But that would give us a parallax situation. But if we're going to do that, we definitely need to scale up the background. So I'm going to just scale it up. And we will see how this works. Okay, I'm going to show you guys the idea that I'm thinking right here. I'm going to go into 3D. So if we hit the Control space bar, you can dial around here. Alright, and now this is hard to kind of see what you're doing. So what you want to do is open up another panel, another viewer. And so the other viewer shows me what the camera sees. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is grab the Animate tool in position mode, and this needs to be cropped to the camera, by the way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go like this over, what, 2 seconds maybe? Let's just do it over like 1.5 seconds-ish. That might be fun. Let's see. Now, but we're not getting parallax, right? So now what we want to do is grab the sky layer again, and I'm going to hit the Animate tool, but I'm going to press Control so it's taking it back in 3D space. And then I want to scale it. Just scale it up until it looks right. That looks right. So now what I'm going to do is delete this keyframe because I don't want to animate the sky. You could animate the sky if you wanted to sort of amplify the effect you're getting from the camera. But, okay, that did not work. So this is the problem you'll always have if you're trying to do something like this is that you've got to get everything in position properly. You kind of have to animate in reverse. Otherwise, you can't see what you're doing, right? Because I need the sky doesn't get animated. So I need to get it in its proper position, but if I do it here where I can see it, because obviously here at the beginning I can't see it, then I've got to delete the other animation keyframe. So I hope that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is scale this guy up again. Okay. Then hit the position option, hitting Control, drag. Okay, and there they are. So let me see. And then I'm going to actually hit Shift and drag down. And now I'm getting a little annoyed because actually doing it in this window is... Actually, I think I can leave it there. There we go. See, now we've got parallax. Okay? And so now what we can do is put Mel in the middle, and we'll have to sort of animate him here. And then, of course, we're going to want to punch up the grass, too. The grass is... Because I did scale it up from a vector level, the grass is too cheeseball looking. Okay, so... Hey, Kamara. Hey, Tom. Heavy wind and rain hard for more than 30 minutes. We did not get any rain here. And by the way, thanks for weighing in on that, Tom, and letting Claude know what's going on with the effects. Okay, so Darren says he might do a video on how to use the asset level library for reuse of props and features of characters and backgrounds, like with symbols in Animate. Okay, Claude, I will say this. I mean, I do this all the time, and lately, first of all, if your assets are just drawings, then if you've imported them in a shot that you've done, then you can just go to the extras folder and there they'll be. So you could take any drawing or character, you know, a complete image sequence that you've used in the past, and you can pull it out of here. And if it's a smart raster level, it's going to be in the drawings folder. So I'm actually going to do that right now because I need to get the palette for Mel. So I'm going to go and find a picture of Mel that's pretty close to what I want, and it's the same one I used earlier. Now this drawing is actually, you know, I almost could reuse that same drawing, truthfully. So why don't we do that? Let's just go, I need to reverse it, but let's load this up and go here. And so you can see what's going on in 3D. I'm going to take, let me see what we have here in terms of the art. Let's go to the camera view, file, save all. Okay. Waiting for Tahoma to save. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's what the browser's for. I mean, I reuse levels all the time. And there's no, now, well, okay, so my point is that the asset library feature, which I don't even know anything about, may help you control that reuse process to a greater degree. So if you're reusing stuff, like if you're doing, you know, if you're doing Family Guy and everybody's a 3/4 view and you're using the same assets over and over and over because it's like a dialogue-driven comedy or something, then, you know, it may make sense to have some sort of asset library that you're just able to quickly grab things from, because if you use the browser, obviously you're fishing through a lot of content that isn't really stuff you're ever going to reuse. So, but I mean, let's face it, for me, it takes 1 minute, you know. Now this drawing actually is probably even better, and this one's even better still. I'm gonna play with this. That is, I actually like. I'm going to use these two. Okay, cool. This is awesome. I am going to be able to get some serious reuse here. Okay. So what I want to do is just stretch Mel out. We'll put the eye blink in later. Definitely going to use that. Okay, so we come up here. There he is. Okay, this is awesome. I'm really liking the way this is going to work. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Animate tool in position mode, and what I'm going to do is, oh, I'm sorry, I want scale. You want to scale, and then just take the horizontal dimension and put a minus sign in front of it. It's the same way it works in Blender. If you just do negative 100% scaling, it flips him. So now he's going to be flipped. Look at that. That's cool. All right. So now what we're going to do is, I think what I'll do is also, I'm going to scale him up like that and get his positioning kind of where I want it to be. Let me see here. In terms of framing, I guess it feels like it's a little large. And we're going to have to adjust this scaling anyway because of the 3D. Okay, so what the heck did you just say, Dave? What I meant was this. I need to take his position. I'm hitting the control key and I want to move it back a little bit. Okay, which means it's not going to be the right size anymore. But that's going to help it work together with the parallax. Not much though. I mean, he's so close to that foreground that it's a bit of a joke actually. But let's go ahead and take him back even a little more. That's actually probably pretty good. That's better framing anyway. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, if he's reaching this position at the start, let me see something here. Okay, yeah. At the start, I want him to be down here like this. So he's easing up. So I switch to this view, so I'm not actually seeing the camera animation. Now the camera animation isn't going to throw me. Okay, and then if we look at what the camera's seeing, okay, and now what I want to do is take him and stretch him down just a little bit further so that after the camera settles, he's still sneaking up a bit, right? And then what we'll do is we'll give him that eye blink. So I'm going to cut this out and go back over here because I've got an alternative drawing that actually has the eye blink in it. And now I can take this one, smack that one in there. And guys, unbelievably, I think I need to punch up the grass like I said. But other than that, I think this shot is done. Smoking. How am I doing? 50 minutes. Now my goal was to get 2 shots done in an hour. So I'm feeling pretty proud of myself here. Look at that. This is working. Okay, so now all we got to do is go to this level and decide how we're going to punch up the leaves. Okay, I'm going to save everything because I'm going to take the calculated risk of using symbols if parts of a character are saved a layer at a time. Well, that's true, but Claude, you know what? I will tell you this. If you take I'll tell you what I would do. I mean, not having used a quote-unquote asset library, obviously I know how symbols work in Flash, or I guess what they call Animate now. But this is what I would do in Tahoma or OpenToonz. What I would do is I would just set up a character with your entire puppet rig on as many levels as you need. Okay, don't worry about your background. Don't worry about any other characters in the scene or anything like that. Okay, if you set up that character so that you use the Animate tool to set the center positions of joints and things so they rotate in the right orientation, and or use the plastic tool, you could set up as many levels as you need to completely rig your character and then save your Toonz file. If you take that Toonz file and drag and drop it into another OpenToonz or Tahoma scene, it will be loaded as a sub-scene, which you can then climb into, do your animation, and you can reuse that scene over and over, you know, in any other scene, and it just gets loaded as a sub-scene, which is kind of intuitively what you would expect to happen, right? So there's an idea for you. Take it or leave it. Okay, so now what we wanted to do was add a vector level. Boom. And all I want to do, friends, is grab a couple colors here. And I'm going to hit the R key so I can sample that color, sample that color. And now what we're going to do, I probably should look at this from the camera's perspective, just to see what our level of detail really needs to be. Okay. And also the positioning. So I see that little cluster of grass right there. Okay, got it. I guess I could have looked at the red. The red rectangle would have probably should have given it away. Okay, so now I'm hitting the B key, and all I'm going to do is start adding just a more finer level of detail here on the grass. That's all. This would definitely be easier with like a raster level, to tell you the truth. But that's okay. We'll just smack it out and get her done. Okay, so in the 7.3 version of OpenToonz professional equivalent Toonz, it showed an alien being animated in that way. Yeah, and the capabilities I'm talking about have been in Toonz forever. I mean, it's a pretty mature part of the software because it's been, you know, it's certainly anything you can do that's related to puppet animation has been around for a long, long time. Now, another thing you can do that a lot of people may not know is that if you're going to set up a puppet rig, I like to use the plastic tool pretty frequently, but if you use the skeleton tool, setting up the rig interactively in the drawing space is actually really, really clunky. Whereas if you go into the schematic and just visually create your structure, actually you want to be in the stage schematic, but in other words, if I wanted this, if this was a forearm, and it's gonna be the child of an upper arm, let's say. If you set up your rig visually like this, you can then go into the skeleton tool and put it into IK mode, and all the inverse kinematics, everything about the skeleton setup will be done for you. So you can skip fighting with the skeleton tool as far as setting up, at least in my experience, setting up parenting relationships in the I guess the 2D space is really clunky. It doesn't really work that well. So, just my 2 cents worth. Again, you can take it or leave it, but if I was going to set up a puppet rig, I would either use the plastic tool, which has its own, you know, challenges and limitations, or I would just do it in the schematic. I would just do it in the schematic. Okay, so now here's going to be kind of an interesting thing I'm going to try. I'm going to add another color, but I'm going to sample, I'm going to hit the R key and sample the dark color, and then maybe make it just a tiny bit lighter. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the B key, and up here I'm going to put draw under. That way, anything I draw here is going to be put under the leaves and whatnot that I've already drawn. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I want to make this pretty thin. Yeah, that's better. So it's gonna cover the old larger ones, obviously, but as far as the new stuff, it's gonna be put on the bottom. All right. So there's that. And now I'm going to turn that back off so that I can then go in and sort of just work a few nice little blades of grass into this. And okay, I hit the N key. Not sure I'm totally loving that. Like I said, this would have been easier with a straight raster level, so you can really just paint, you know. Toonz Premium has its own YouTube channel. Yeah, I did not know that. I didn't even know that Toonz Premium was even still a thing, actually. What are they charging for it nowadays? I think back in the day, I mean, I just remember back in the early 2000s, I mean, basically when you were just a baby, seeing, like in Animation magazine, I remember seeing ads for Toonz back then. It's been around for a long, long time. I'm I'm feeling like this is probably not too bad. I'm going to turn off the autofill stuff and see what happens if I allow this to... There we go. There we go. Why wasn't I doing it that way in the beginning? This makes more sense. Trying to do these closed shapes is just silly. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Apparently, I had a stupid attack. And that does happen every once in a while. I don't like that. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, cool beans. Little bit of the dark stuff here. Fill in that empty space. Okay. And probably we want some sort of a sense of shadowing of it right here. In fact, you know, honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea to consider... Yeah, really, if I'm going to do that, I'd rather make it black and semi-transparent, so it's just a standard type shadow. Yeah, this is really hard to control. Really hard to control. Not sure I'm loving the way that looks. But yeah, that's not too bad. Turn the smoothing down and accuracy up, I think. And I'm going to turn the max size up a bit too. The thing is, it's not, as you can see, it's not catching, like at the end of a stroke when I let the pressure off, it's not catching that at all. So I'm not getting nice pointy tips on the strokes I'm drawing. So it's like using the pressure sensitivity is almost kind of useless anyway, if the truth be known. So I think I'm gonna, I think I'm gonna delete that palette entry completely. File, save all. I hate to do this, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go and just add a raster level and punch this up because it doesn't look good enough, and it would be stupid easy to do with standard painting. So vectors, vectors, vectors. Vectors, vectors. So let's do a raster level. Tahoma's thinking. And what I want to do is use probably the oil paint brush. So typically it wants to be sized down a bit. And let's just sample that color and then darken up a bit. And now see how easy this is. This is just silly how easy this is. Now I can just just paint it in. Do it the easy way, not the hard way. I've been doing it the hard way. Well, I did want to see how the vectors scaled up and how hard they were to work with, because I really haven't hardly ever used vector layers, or levels I should say, until somewhat recently. And because I do use them lately for shadows, just drawing closed shapes to use as shadows. But yeah, this is way, way, way nicer to work with. Holy cow. Like, no contest, people. No contest at all. So, I don't know if you guys can actually see that well what I'm doing, but... because it's... I can't look through the camera the normal way because everything's animated already, but... this should be okay, so let's... and I want to really shrink that down. One thing that would be better in Tahoma is if we had a little bit more interactive ability to change brush sizes. You can assign hotkeys to the to the I think you can assign a hotkey to this but obviously it would be easier if you could do like you do in Krita, where you just hit Control and drag, and I'm sorry, Shift and drag, and it resizes your brush for you, you know, just interactively. So that'll be my feature request for today, I guess. Okay, they have their vexations. Oh, aren't you clever today, Maria? You want to increase the canvas size on that layer, Dave, since you pan into it? Well, no. I would say no. It's probably not necessary, because obviously the vector levels can scale all they want anyway, but this touch-up that I'm putting over top of it is being done at the native size that's finally going to be seen at anyway, so I don't think there's any reason to resize it. And plus, it's just, I mean, if you put this level in isolation, what you're actually going to see is this. So I don't think you would be seeing any resolution issues in this particular case. But it's a good thought, though. There are many situations where that becomes a little more relevant. Let's snap to here. And I want to check my output settings here real quick. This needs to be set to 552. And I think I will save and render. We're going to have to add some lighting effects. So we're definitely going over our hour. Hey, Razlad. Yeah, I never zoom into it, though. So it's not being scaled for all intents and purposes. Excuse me. Maybe not if that's the maximum size as you zoom during the pan. Right. It never did zoom. The only thing that you could think of as being zoomed basically in reverse was the sky, because I moved the sky really back in Z space and then I scaled it up. But the net result, once it's projected onto the 2D plane, is that it's the same size it was in the first place. The only reason I did that is so we get the parallax effect when you actually move the camera. So did that render? I sitting here blabbing and I didn't notice if it rendered. Normally, once you've rendered one time, re-rendering is really, really fast in Tahoma, so I'm guessing it didn't render. There we go. But maybe it did. Okay. Let's say the shadow layer is going to have to be married or parented to the mel layer, and we're also going to want to use the body highlight effect. So scene Tahoma is saving right now, by the way. So I need to check my scene settings. Okay, this is turned on, so that's correct. So now I guess what I want to do is go here and put in a shadow. Okay, so again, I'm doing a vector level. Boom, boom, and oops. Got to turn these guys back on so they draw closed shapes. Okay, so let's just get this in here. Doing shadows the quintessential shadowy way. I think that's actually all I want. I think I don't want to make that transparent. I'm sorry. I want to make this transparent. So we're going to dial that shadow down to there. And now this, actually now this is going to be in the wrong place. I forgot. My bad. So what I need to do, this might be confusing for some people. What I've got to do is I need to take this level, just column 3, and make it a child of column 2, which is Mel. So the shadow is a child of column of the character. The problem is that now, because this column was animated, this is going to be drawn in the wrong position, right? And you can see that. So okay, and you have the, yeah, I mean, look at what I've got here. So what I need to do is actually, this is pretty clunky. This is actually a good example of where your modifications start to pile up on top of each other, and it can become a bit of a data management nightmare. But that should be okay. Let's look at what that looks like rendered. Okay, it looks right. Okay, so that's fine. So this keyframe, I hope this makes sense for you guys, because I could imagine where for some people this might be starting to be a little bit confusing as far as the way the you know, I'm doing a lot of stuff here. Okay, so now what I want to do is take this character, column 2, and in the effects, I want to do that body highlight effect again. So light, body highlight. Let's look at what we have. This should be, yeah, I think I actually want to do it. I think I'm going to do it the way I did it before. Okay, so what that means is I'm going to take the body highlighting effect and I'm going to put the color as black, not white. Okay, now the way this is done, you'd think there'd be a pop-up, but actually what happens is it kind of wakes up the color selector over here, and so you set it that way. And so now what we're going to do is also invert it. Okay, and now by cranking up the transparency, we can just dial that in like so. Okay, that feels pretty good. And I think we might be pretty close to done here. So let's go Control-Shift-R, re-render this thing, and then let's jump over to Vegas and see how it went. Okay, so this is shot number 552, and we're going to import it. Boom. 552, where are you? Render, grab that. We're going to open a sequence of 34 images at 8 frames per second. There it is. Drag it in there. Turn off interpolation, or resampling, I guess is the proper term. And now let's go back to the full screen and we can see what this looks like. So we'll just kind of go from here and just see how it flows. Pop. Careful. Okay, not bad. Not bad. There is one problem editorially, though. There is one problem editorially, which is, as I mentioned earlier, once he gets up here, he has to technically still be in motion, right? This is the problem you have making films as well, where you shoot a scene from multiple angles, and your character stops moving, and so then you go to the next action, but you have to get the continuity of flow from one motion to the other. So that looks better. So now he's gonna go boop, oop, let me out of here. And that I feel like takes a little too long, so boop. It's close. Boop. Pew. There, look at that. Now that's good editing. That's good editing. Poop. Pop. And it just flows right into it. That's nice. That's what we want to see. Okay, cool. So look at this on the big screen. Man, I tell you, I like it. I like it muy mucho. So what have we done today? I can't even freaking believe it, but I think, wow, that's only 6 seconds of show. Well, that's what happens when you have all this action going on. You end up doing a lot of shots, and you don't really knock off that much time. The only other thing I would like to change, Okay, who knows about cartoon beatbox battles? The 14th episode is coming in less than 3 hours. I don't know anything about that. Okay, so what I want to do is go to this, and the thing I am missing, I'm gonna save my work just to player safe. Very Mel-like. I agree. It is very Mel-like. Come on. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the brush, and I'm actually going to sample the rock color, like so. Remember, we're still using an oil paint brush. And now I'm just going to turn the value down a little bit. That way I can kind of work some shadow action in here on the rocks that's a little more consistent with what we might expect. Okay, now I'm not happy with the way that's looking, by the way. It's a little harsh, and the brushwork isn't flowing the way I like, but we'll fix that in half a second here. I'm going to go ahead and get it sort of blocked in, and then we'll go back in and fix it a little better. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and resample that color again, and that way we can just get some flow from the rock color into the shadow color. That's where your oil paint brush is pretty useful. Now this is not going to be a very harsh shadow. It's going to be a fairly soft shadow. Boy, I just definitely need to make the value just a tiny bit darker. Just a skosh. A skosh, I say. Well, to be perfectly honest, this would be easier to do in Krita. But, I mean, I do like the oil paint brush, though, as far as my paint brushes. It's definitely one of my favorite brushes. Favored. I'm going to use DaVinci Resolve and Shortcut for video editing. A lot of people seem to like DaVinci Resolve. I've never had very good luck with it. I've tried installing it multiple times, and it's basically every time I've ever, like for years, for like 10 years, every time I've ever tried to use DaVinci Resolve, like I'll get it installed and it immediately crashes, like every time. I got a little further with it one time where I was getting into its how it sort of manages the data pool and whatnot, and I don't know. It's a very, very, very powerful and capable color corrector, that's for sure. Okay. I can see I'm asking for trouble here. I am asking for trouble. And I'm not even going to try to explain why. There's something going on here with the way that the color is interacting. Yeah, this is probably something I should have done in Krita. I'm feeling that at the moment, but that's okay. I think I'm just going to go ahead and save and render and kind of see what I've got. Yeah, see, it's just really sloppy. Yeah, it's pretty sloppy. That's like going to have to be completely redone. And I don't feel like redoing it. Now, what's annoying about this is that you know, it pretty much has everything to do with the quality. We'll see. Tom's right. Throwing a blur on the layer wouldn't work though, because yeah, this is the quintessential case where trying to do everything in Tahoma is pretty spectacularly a bad idea, because what I'm trying to do would this would look much better and be much easier to do in Krita, and then just cut and paste the image into Tahoma and be done with it. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do, but I don't really feel like doing it now. So I'm thinking I'm going to call it good I was planning to do about an hour session here, and I think we've made some nice progress. And maybe on my next session, or perhaps offline, I'll actually cut and paste this imagery here of the foreground and just repaint it, and probably use a foliage brush, you know, which would look a lot better in Krita, and then just cut and paste it into Tahoma, and it'll look great, you know. So correct, yeah. As I said, I didn't want to really get into a discussion about it, but the basic problem is that the way that Tahoma manages the alpha channel, which I'm pretty sure is a function of the way that Qt allows the Tahoma developers to work with the alpha channel. There's something about the way it's implemented that really is not quite up to snuff compared to the way most professional paint programs work. And so you get this strange artifacting. It could be perhaps looking at, it could be that, yeah, pre-multiplying it doesn't help. And you could add anti-aliasing just to blur it up a little bit, but I don't think it's going to help. Yeah, that looks terrible. But yeah, you can see the ability to blend the strokes. I mean, it's like you're supposed to be able to blend those strokes, but the truth is you really can't very well. So I definitely do not. When I do a painting using the oil paint brush all by itself, and that's kind of the aesthetic you're after, it tends to work fine. Be nickety. Yeah, too much texture showing on that ground shadow. Absolutely. And now, of course, OBS is being OBS. OBS is being OBS. I don't know. I may try the latest version of OBS and see if it does a little better. I think even a vector layer of the same amount of complexity at the current vector, just a darker value, will be the best shadow. I think you're probably right. Why don't we just try that real quick? Kill that. Yeah, it would be more consistent with the overall look of the shot anyway. So I did add this, added that detail. So I'm going to go with Tom's idea, actually, and just add a shadow color here, which is going to be, let's sample that color, and then we'll go a little darker, and then we can always crank up the opacity a little bit if we want to. So I'm going to just try to do this as a very simple shape. That kind of just reflects the amount of noise that you're getting from the grass. And I'll bet you this is going to take less than a minute, and it's probably going to wind up looking better. Yeah, it did. So good suggestion, Tom. Sometimes, you know, sometimes I'll go down a road like that just because I want to try it, you know. In this case, it just, you know, it backfired bad enough that I'm kind of like regretting trying. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that actually looks pretty good, and it is certainly way more consistent with the aesthetic of, you know, the background painting and everything. I think that looks pretty. Like, nobody's gonna look at that and go, "Oh, that looks pretty simplistic there, pal." I don't think that's gonna happen. So, with that, I'm gonna render and call it done and sign off. So, as you guys know, as I always say, there will be more later. Yeah, I'm liking it. We got her. Nice. Yep. And then we'll be getting back to TNR next time, because we see her climb out of the tent, and that's going to be a job animating that. So anyway, that's it. I will see you guys, and as I said, as you know,